Namo Buddhaya. In life, we have to deal with different kinds of people. So it is the nature of a person or a human is to make mistakes. Every living being make mistakes. That is the nature of this life. That is the nature of our mind. Because our mind is full of hatred and delusion and our craving. So when these defilements get filled inside our minds, it is the normal nature to make mistakes. So sometimes when we are working in a company, or when you are working in a company, if you are a leader, sometimes the people who work under your supervision may make mistakes. So most of the time, people use anger and they use resentment, hatred, and evil words to explain something about a mistake to a person. That is the normal human nature. Remember, when you use the words of anger, when you use the evil words, when you talk in anger, you cannot explain that certain thing to that certain person. Because no one likes to hear angry words from anyone. No one likes for another person to make them shy or embarrass them in front of others. But most of us embarrass people in front of others. Most of us talk the words of anger to explain the certain things when the people make mistakes. But our great teacher Supreme Buddha explained to us that if you need to accuse someone, if you need to explain about a mistake that has done by another person to that person, there's a way to do that. There's a correct way to do that. So when you explain that certain thing to that person about that mistake, you need to have 5 things in your speech. Supreme Buddha said, the first one is, the speak must be timely. You should speak in the correct time. So what is the correct time? Never speak to a person, never explain about a mistake to a person when he is in anger. Because when people become angry, they shut their ears. They don't like to hear about the things that others say. So you need to explain about a mistake to that certain person when he is cool. So if you need to complain to someone, if you need to explain something to someone, talk with him privately. Bring him to a private place, maybe your cabin, maybe to a private place, and talk with him about that. That is the first thing. It should be timely spoken. The second one, Supreme Buddha said that speak must be a real one. That means you need to explain about a mistake that really have done by him. Sometimes we may misunderstand about the situations, from the miscommunications, and we complain to wrong people, the people who hasn't done anything wrong. So when you speak like that, you damage to that person's trust, right? So you need to complain from a mistake that has really happened, from the truthfulness. That is the second point. And Supreme Buddha said, you need to speak gentle words. That is the third one. You need to speak the words of gentleness. So how to do that? First of all, if you need to complain to a person, first of all, you need to praise him. So suppose your colleague or a worker who works under you has done some mistake. So how to do that? First of all, you need to give a value to his occupation, the work that he is doing for you. So when you're doing that, his mind becomes happy and he opens his ears to listen to you. That is the first part. Then go for the complaint. Then explain that this mistake has happened from you. Ask, why did you do that? What was the problem? Right? What was the problem to do that? Then you can complain about that. And again give a value to his life. Say that, give a praise to him. say that you are doing well, but you have done something wrong, so you should not do this again and again. Then they will always listen to your explanations. So that is the thing. You have to speak gently, with kindness. And also Supreme Buddha said, you need to speak, you need to explain about that mistake with the goodwill, with the mind of explaining to that person and making his life better. You need to give that feeling to him. You need to give that feeling that he's trying to explain me something to make my life better. When he feels that, he always listens to you. So that is the fourth one. You need to look for the betterment of that person. And finally, Supreme Buddha said, you need to speak friendly words. You need to give that feeling of friendliness to that person. When you give that feeling to that person, he will reveal all the secrets inside him because he feels comfortable with you and he will always try to listen to your advice. So that is how we deal with the people who make mistakes. But never be angry in front of the people who has done something wrong, because we all make mistakes. We all are humans. We all are in the same nature. So what we have to do, forgive them, explain them about the mistake kindly, never hurt their feelings. And if you do this, you will find so many people around you who are praising you and who are loving you. Make your life better with kindness. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to yet another episode in Inner Guide Q&A program. Now, in society, we have heard some people may say, being kind is a weakness. The people who become kind to others are weak. People may say like that. So today, from this Inner Guide Q&A program, we are going to find that how to be kind without being weak. We need to know that kindness itself is not a weakness. Kindness is a virtue. It is a great quality that you can have in your mind. But people consider the people who become kind to others, people who are very compassionate to others, are weak. But that is not the reality. So how can you be kind without being weak? So it reminds me a wonderful discourse in Supreme Buddha's teachings. In that discourse it says, if you can maintain your patience when you are powerful than the other person, if you can maintain your inner peace when someone complains you or someone hurts you, even though you are more powerful than that person, that is the greatest patience that you can have in your life. So, being patient, being silent, doesn't define that you are weak. So how to be kind and how to be patient without being weak? So you should not go to the arena of negativeness. It means you should not be patient out of fear. And you should not go to the arena of aggressiveness. That means you should not be aggressive to others. Instead, you can be assertive. You should not be negative and you should not be aggressive. Instead, you can be assertive. So what do you mean by assertiveness? Assertiveness means being kind and maintaining your inner peace without being aggressive, and still you can be confident. If you can be confident as well as if you can be kind to others, that is what you call the assertiveness. So, when you be kind to other person, that does not mean that you are weak. So what you have to do when you become kind, you have to be wise also. So the kindness mixed with wisdom is the best kindness. You can be kind. If those evil people or toxic people comes to you and start hurting you again and again, you have to take yourself back. You can stay away from those people. You should not fall into the same trap again and again. Instead, you can be away from them. And that is what you call the assertiveness. So, in your life, you should be kind as well as wise. When you become kind and as well as wise, you become assertive. That is what the real kindness is. So don't let anyone to control your inner peace. Don't let anyone to change your emotions and make you sad. Instead, you should be assertive. You should maintain your inner peace and be confident and be patient and be kind to them, but never ever be angry and hurt others. Namo Buddhaya, Theruvan Saranai. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to today's video. Today, this special video is entirely dedicated to those who are studying. Now, one of the most frequent questions that I get asked in the comment section is, Bhante, I'm studying and my mind is distracting all the time, and how to focus on studying? Well, today, let's discuss about this distracting mind, okay? And also, I'm going to share with you a few tips where you can practice while you're studying to help to focus your mind on studying. So, without any further ado, let's get into these tips. Now, while you're studying, have you ever found yourself daydreaming? Right? Sometimes we sit down to study and we just turn our book on and we start to study, and after a few minutes, what happens to us? We just get distracted, right? We just start daydreaming. Trust me, when I was studying, when I was at home, before I became a monk, when I was studying, I used to daydream a lot, okay? I used to get distracted a lot. So, it is very difficult. I know it is very difficult and it's very hard to focus our mind to studies because we live in a world where there are many distractions. So what we can do about this distracting mind, and how can we focus on our mind on our studies? Well, there are certain things that you can do. And one of them is, the first thing that I want to share with you today is that I would like you to write down what you become distracted. Okay? This is something that you get heard rarely. Okay? So let's say like this. You're studying. Okay? And you turn over the book and you started studying. And sometimes the same thing happened. What is that? Daydreaming. Okay? It's okay. Let it happen. Okay? Once you know, and once you identify that you are daydreaming, and once you found yourself that you are daydreaming, what do you have to do? I want you to take a pen or a pencil and take a blank paper and write down that thought that you became distracted. For an example, while you're studying, sometimes we used to think about foods a lot, okay? So what do you have to do? Write it down. I got distracted about thinking about biryani, okay? Something like that. Or sometimes we become distracted thinking about the past experiences, the things that happened in the past, okay? So what do you have to do? Write it down. Jot it down on a paper. Now, why should we do this? Because most of the time, we are not aware of what we are thinking. When we become distracted and when we daydream, we don't know what is going in our mind. We don't know what we are thinking. We just jump into that stream of thoughts and we just flow down. So what do you have to do? When you write that thought in a piece of paper, right? It's like you're identifying that thought, right? You code that thought and you identify, okay, this is what makes me distracted. This is what makes me unfocused on studies, okay? Then there's a physical thing that you can see, and you can see that it is physically that you are distracting, okay? So what do you have to do? Write down your distracting thoughts. Okay, then you have a good understanding. When you do this for a little while, what can you do is, and what can you find is, there's a pattern of distractions. That means we become distracted for few thoughts, and they are the thoughts that come again and again to our mind. So what do you have to do? Write it down. That is the first tip. Second tip, identify what makes you distracted and then be brave enough to remove all those distractions. There are triggers that makes us distracted. Let's say, for an example, our mobile phone. Okay? Let's say you're studying and there's the mobile phone on the desk. Each and every time it rings a notification, what do? We take our mobile phone and we check what it is. Okay? So a mobile phone is not distracting you. It is a trigger for your distraction. Trigger is just a trigger until you give the power to that to make you distracted. So what do you have to do? Physically, by force, sometimes it's very difficult, okay? You have to be brave enough to do that. Remove that distraction. If your mobile phone is distracting you, be brave enough to remove it, okay? If your laptop or your any technical device that is distracting you, be brave enough to remove it. And sometimes, right, sometimes we have to use this technology. Okay, sometimes you have to use your laptop to study. So what do you have to do? While you're doing it, be much more disciplined and much more aware of what you're thinking and what you're doing inside it. Okay, use it only for what you want. Okay, while studying. I'm not saying that other times you can use it in whatever way you want, but use it only for what you want while studying. So the second tip is to be brave enough to remove the distractions. Okay, if something is distracting you, you have to remove it. Tip number 3, do not study for long hours continuously. I can still remember when I was studying and when I was at home, I can still remember I used to make these schedules and timetables to study for 2 or 3 hours continuously. You know, it is not productive. So what you can do? You can study for short time intervals. Maybe like, let's say 25 minutes. Okay, you can use 25 minutes to study, okay, and then take a little bit of a break and then again study. And while you're studying, what you have to do, you have to jot down and you have to write down all those distracting thoughts. Okay, keep that in your mind. So do not study for long hours. Just take a break and refresh yourself and then come back again to studies. That is another thing that you can do. And here comes the final tip, the tip number 4. It is the most important thing and the most awesome thing is to practice a little bit of meditation before every study session. Okay? Before every study session, let's say you studied for 25 minutes and you took an interval, then you came back to study. Now, while you are taking that break, sometimes you do certain things to make your mind busy even more. So what we have to do? We have to just settle down and make our mind to focus. To do that, you can use a little bit of meditation before every study session. Just sit down on your chair and just close your eyes. And the easiest thing that you can do is to watch this flow of breath, in breath and out breath. When you practice this calming meditations like breathing meditation, that is one of the easiest meditations that you can do. When you focus your mind on this in-breath and out-breath, it helps you to become calm and settle down. Then your mind will get ready to study. Okay? So these are the few things and few easy things that you can do and practice while studying. Okay? So use these things and use these tips to study and make your studies a more productive one. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about something really important for all of our lives, especially in these days, and that is the things that we should not speak with others, according to Buddha's teachings. Now, at first, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a Buddhist, so why should I care about these things? Here's the thing. These principles can be applied to anyone's life, regardless of their religion or belief system. So that is why these speeches are called 4 unwholesome speeches. That is what Buddha said about these speeches, 4 unwholesome speeches. So without any further ado, let's dive in. First of all, we have lying. Now Buddha said, stay away from lying. Now I know we all have said white lies here and there in all of our lives, right? But whether it is a white lie, whether it is a black lie, gray lie, or a red lie, no matter what the lie is, lying itself can be so harmful for all of our lives. Why is that? When you lie, it destroys your trust. When you lie, it destroys your character, right? So that is why it is very important to have trust between people. In our daily relationships between people, the most important component of a happy relationship is the trust. So that is why Buddha said, live a truthful life. And it is very important to have that transparency and honesty in our relationships. So the first thing that we have to stay away from is lying. And next we have divisive speech. What do you mean by divisive speech? Divisive speech is all about creating drama between people or creating conflicts between people using your words, right? It can be gossiping or it can be talking behind someone's back, right? I must say that when you talk these words or when you use this divisive speech, it is not a good thing for your life. And also it is not a good thing for other people's relationships. So Buddha said, do not use this divisive speech. Do not break the relationships between people using your words. Most of the time, we use the divisive speech out of jealousy or out of anger. So that is why it's very important to stay away from divisive speech. And the third one is, Buddha said, stay away from harsh speech. Now, when someone is calling you or when someone is treating you with rude words, how do you feel? Now, we all have been in this receiving end of such speeches, no? How did you feel? We felt sad, we felt depressed, we felt down about ourselves. So that is why Buddha said, do not use your words to put someone down, right? Do not use your words out of anger. This is all about criticizing and name-calling and putting someone else down with your words, right? So Buddha said, stay away from harsh speech. And finally, Buddha said, stay away from idle chatter. What do you mean by idle chatter? Idle chatter is all about speaking meaningless or useless things, right? Now, that doesn't say that we cannot have a small chat or a fun talk with people. We can do that, but we have to know where our limit is in our speech, right? We have to set the boundaries in our speech, right? We have to know where our speech become unproductive, right? When you use these words, when you use your words in a meaningful way, you can create a positive life. And you can create a positive emotions or positive feelings in others' lives too, right? So these are the 4 unwholesome speeches that we have to stay away from, that our great teacher Supreme Buddha taught us according to the Buddha's teachings, right? So why all these things matter? Why these unwholesome speeches matter in our life? Well, Buddha said, the words that we speak can create either positive or negative karma in our life. Do not think lightly about this karma, right? You have to be very careful about the karma. So the intention behind your words really matters in your life. And that is why we have to use our words wisely, because it can make a huge impact in our lives as well as in others' lives too. So words that we speak are like a knife, right? You can use the knife to cut something useful, right? And also you can use the knife to kill someone else. So let's use our words to create a better life for ourselves and for others. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you got some food for thought for your life. So until next time, I wish you all, may all of you be well and happy, and may all of you live in peace forever. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. In today's video, let's talk about how to control our negative emotions and how to control our mind. Well, the nature of our mind is it always likes to wander in negative emotions and negative thoughts. Negative thoughts like anger, desire or lust, or then jealousy, maybe resentment. These are the negative thoughts that our mind likes to wander in. So how can we control it? Well, our great teacher Supreme Buddha introduced us a gradual training where you can practice this controlling of negative emotions or negative thoughts in your mind. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce them to you. So first and foremost, before getting into these steps, there is one thing that you have to practice, and there is one thing that you have to master, and that is awareness. If you are not aware of what you're thinking, if you are not mindful about what you're thinking, then you cannot control it. So you have to totally understand and you have to totally be aware of what you're thinking. Okay? So whenever you become aware of what you're thinking, then you will have that power to control it. So here comes the first step. Buddha says, whenever you become aware of your mind is wandering in negative thoughts like anger or lustful thoughts or resentment or jealousy, the first thing is to shift your thought pattern to something wholesome. There are some wholesome thoughts in your mind which makes you peaceful. Maybe like thinking of something that you have done in the past, like maybe you helped someone. Whenever you think that thought, your mind becomes happy and peaceful. So what you're going to do is, whenever you become aware of your negative thoughts, we're going to shift our thought pattern to something that is wholesome, something that makes us peaceful. So that is the first thing that Buddha says. Shift your thoughts to wholesome thoughts. If that first step did not work out, then what you have to do, go for the next step. What is that? Buddha says, think about the disadvantages of thinking negative emotions, right? If you are constantly having angry thoughts, then you have to think, these thoughts are hurting myself and others. If I take actions according to these thoughts, it will hurt myself and the others. Remember, it may be a little thought of anger, but if it grow up, what will happen? It will be destructive. So what do you have to do? Think about the drawbacks or disadvantages of thinking these negative thoughts. Then, whenever you see these disadvantages, your mind will tend to stay away from these negative thoughts. Most of the time, we are not aware of these disadvantages. Okay? So what do you have to do? Think, if I keep on thinking these negative thoughts, it is not going to help me. It will disrupt my peacefulness, right? That is the second step. Then as the third step, Buddha says, pay no mind, pay no attention. If the second step did not work out, go for the third step, to not to pay any attention to that thought, right? See, whenever we give so much attention to something, maybe a thought, it grows again and again, it grows more, right? For an example, if you became angry with someone and if you keep thinking about him again and again and becoming angry, that anger will grow more and more. So what do you have to do? We have to let the thought be a thought without paying much attention, right? When you just stay away from giving attention, then it will fade away from your mind. It's something like this. Have you seen little babies, when they fall down, they start to cry. right? If the parent or the mother or father see that it is not a big deal of falling, if mother or father did not give any attention to that baby, what does he do? He just don't care about that. He will stop crying. Same thing goes with our mind. If we did not pay any attention to that thought, right? If we did not care about that thought and just let it go and let it pass away from our mind, then it will fade away. That is one way of doing that. If the third step did not work for you, then the Buddha says, go for the fourth step to relax your thought process, right? Now remember, when you think negative thoughts, your mind becomes so much busy, so much rough and distracted. So, what you're going to do is, you're thinking, why am I thinking these distractive thoughts? These negative thoughts that are making me so much busy and making me distracted, right? So, what you're going to do is, you're relaxing your thought process to something very soft and subtle. Maybe like loving kindness, maybe like compassion, right? Maybe like gratefulness. When you think those thoughts, when you think more positive thoughts, your mind or your thought process becomes so much relaxed. And then, if the fourth step did not work for you, then it comes the final step. This is something that we have to do with a great care. I do not recommend for everyone to do this. This should be done with a great experience and a good practice, right? And that is to crush your thought with awareness, right? You have to be totally aware of your thinking pattern and have a good determination to your mind that I am not going to think these negative thoughts, right? But this should not be done by everyone, right? Some may be not good at this, right? If you keep on becoming aware and if you keep on forcing this mind, it will grow more and more these negative thoughts. So if all those 4 steps did not work for you, then you have to go for the final step, right? So it is much better to practice these 4 thoughts before doing the final one, okay? So practice these things. When you practice, you will feel and you will understand that your negative emotions are fading away little by little. Remember, this is not going to happen overnight. It will take a long time to do this, but you have to keep on practicing. Keep on doing it. Make it a habit, and then you will become a master of it. So practice this practice and make your mind a place where free from negative thoughts. Namo Buddhaya.